I never imagined that what began as a simple curiosity could spiral into a descent into horror beyond anything I had ever envisioned. The internet, a vast and seemingly endless repository of information, had always held a certain allure for me. It was a place where knowledge was just a click away, where answers to any question could be found in an instant. Yet, it was the shadowy recesses, the dark web, that truly kindled a dangerous spark of intrigue. Rumors abounded of its mysteries and forbidden knowledge, and in my youthful arrogance, I felt an irresistible pull to explore its depths. The allure of the unknown was intoxicating, a siren's call that promised revelations and secrets hidden away from the prying eyes of the everyday world. I was drawn to it like a moth to a flame, unable to resist the temptation of discovering what lay beneath the surface of the visible web. It all started in a manner that seemed harmless enough. I was perusing an online forum, a place where anonymity was the norm and discussions ranged from the banal to the bizarre. It was a digital marketplace of ideas, a place where anyone could voice their thoughts without fear of judgment. People from all walks of life gathered there, sharing their insights and experiences, creating a tapestry of human knowledge and curiosity. It was there that a particular thread captured my attention, the abyss of shadows, a journey beyond. It promised to be a guide to a clandestine site, one that few dared to enter, rumored to house secrets that defied both logic and comprehension. The descriptions were tantalizing and cryptic, hinting at knowledge that could change the very fabric of understanding. The more I read, the more I felt an overwhelming urge to uncover these secrets for myself, to see if the legends held any truth. Driven by an insatiable curiosity, I clicked without a second thought. The link led me through a series of intricate instructions, a digital labyrinth of networks and protocols. Each step was more complex than the last, a puzzle that required patience and skill to unravel. I found myself navigating through hidden pathways, each more convoluted than the previous, as if the very act of reaching the site was a test of my resolve. At each juncture, I questioned my resolve, pondering whether the secrets were worth the potential peril. Yet, something deeper within me urged me onward, a whisper from the void promising that once I entered the abyss, I would be irrevocably changed. The anticipation was a thrill, a promise of adventure that I couldn't resist. It was as if the very act of seeking these secrets was a rite of passage, a journey that would transform me. When I finally arrived at the site, I was greeted by an unsettling silence. The homepage was stark, offering nothing but a rotating triangle symbol and a chilling prompt, "Enter if you dare." My heart drummed a frantic rhythm in my chest, a symphony of trepidation and excitement. The symbol seemed to pulse with a life of its own, drawing me in with its hypnotic dance. I hesitated for a fleeting moment, then clicked forward, sealing whatever fate awaited me. The decision felt monumental, a step into a world that was both fascinating and terrifying. It was as if I had crossed a threshold into a realm where the rules of reality no longer applied, where the boundaries of what was possible were stretched to their limits. What unfolded before me was beyond chilling. Page after page detailed inhumane experiments conducted on human subjects, each more grotesque than the last. The descriptions were clinical and detached, a stark contrast to the horror they conveyed. The cold, scientific language only served to heighten the sense of dread, painting a picture of a world where morality had been abandoned in the pursuit of knowledge. Images and videos displayed what I desperately hoped were staged scenes, twisted limbs, expressions of agony frozen in time, and eyes that seemed to plead for release from their digital confines. The reality of what I was witnessing was almost too much to bear, a nightmare brought to life on the screen before me. It was as if I had stumbled upon a hidden world where the darkest aspects of human nature were laid bare, a place where the line between humanity and monstrosity blurred. My nights became haunted by these visages, specters lurking in the shadows each time I dared to close my eyes. The images were burned into my mind, a constant reminder of the darkness I had uncovered. They followed me into my dreams, turning them into twisted reflections of the horrors I had witnessed. Yet, despite the terror, I found myself unable to look away. The macabre discoveries led me to forums where others speculated on their origins, science gone awry, supernatural forces at play, secret societies manipulating unseen strings. The theories were as varied as they were disturbing, each more outlandish than the last. They spoke of a realm where science intersected with the paranormal, a place never intended for human eyes. It was a world where the rules of reality seemed to bend and break, where the impossible became possible. The more I delved into these theories, the more I realized that the truth was far more complex than I had ever imagined, a tapestry of secrets woven together by the threads of human curiosity and ambition. As I delved deeper, it became apparent that my presence had not gone unnoticed. Strange messages began to infiltrate my inbox, cryptic warnings written in code. The language was unfamiliar, a jumbled mess of symbols and numbers that seemed to pulse with a hidden meaning. They were like riddles, each one a challenge to decipher, a puzzle that only deepened my sense of unease. Someone, or something, was aware of my intrusion, aware of my prying eyes. Panic seized my heart as I realized that the hunters had become the hunted. The organization behind this site was determined to guard its secrets at all costs, and I had unwittingly crossed their boundaries. The realization was a cold shock, a reminder that I was playing a dangerous game. I had become entangled in a web of intrigue and danger, a pawn in a game whose rules I did not understand. Desperately, I attempted to escape, to sever my ties with the digital labyrinth I had entered. I deleted files, erased histories, and tried to cover my tracks. Every action was a race against time, a frantic attempt to erase my digital footprint before it was too late. But it was too late. My actions had set a series of events in motion, each more relentless than the last. Shadows seemed to stalk me in real life, figures lurking at the edges of my vision, vanishing as soon as I turned to confront them. The paranoia was suffocating, a constant weight on my chest that made it difficult to breathe. It was as if the darkness I had uncovered had seeped into my reality, turning my life into a waking nightmare. Isolation became my only refuge. Friends and family noticed the change, my withdrawal from the world they knew. I became a ghost of my former self, haunted by the knowledge I had uncovered. My interactions became strained, my conversations filled with half-truths and evasions. How could I possibly explain the terror that clung to me, the dread that any click of a mouse could spell my doom? Paranoia enveloped me. Every glance at my computer screen was a stark reminder of the abyss lurking behind the pixels. The fear was a constant companion, a shadow that followed me wherever I went. It was a burden I could not share, a secret that isolated me from the world I once knew. In a final, desperate bid to break free, I sought out someone who claimed to have escaped this nightmare. They spoke of the psychological scars, the haunting memories that never faded, but they also offered a glimmer of hope, a way out. It required confronting the darkness I had unearthed, accepting the horrors I had witnessed, and making peace with my insatiable curiosity. The path to redemption was a difficult one, fraught with challenges and obstacles that seemed insurmountable. It was a journey of self-discovery, a quest to reclaim the parts of myself that had been lost to the abyss. And so, I faced the spectral remnants of my journey. I retraced my steps, a digital pilgrimage back through the abyss, each click an act of atonement. I confronted the specters of those tormented souls, acknowledging their suffering, vowing to carry their stories beyond the dark web's confines. It was a promise to remember, to honor the lives that had been lost in the pursuit of knowledge. The process was agonizing, a stark reminder of the dangers that lurk in our pursuit of the unknown. Yet, it was also liberating, an exorcism of the digital demons I had unwittingly invited into my life. The journey was a cleansing, a chance to start anew with a deeper understanding of the world and my place within it. And though the fear never truly dissipated, I emerged from the abyss, forever altered yet strangely empowered. The experience had changed me, given me a new perspective on the world and the secrets it held. This tale serves as my testament, a warning and a reminder. We humans are driven by an insatiable curiosity, a desire to uncover that which is hidden. But some doors are meant to remain closed, some secrets best left to the shadows. The deep web is a siren's call, a promise of forbidden knowledge that can consume us whole if we are not wary. It is a place where the line between reality and nightmare blurs, where the cost of discovery can be more than we are willing to pay. The knowledge we seek can be a double-edged sword, offering insight and understanding at the cost of our peace of mind. I share this not to scare, but to caution. Our world is more interconnected than we can imagine, and the darkest corners often hide the most enticing yet dangerous mysteries. So tread lightly, for in the pursuit of shadows, we may find ourselves lost in the dark, forever changed by what we discover in the abyss. The journey into the unknown is a perilous one, and it is up to us to decide whether the knowledge we seek is worth the price we must pay. In our quest for understanding, we must be mindful of the boundaries we cross, the doors we open, and the shadows we chase. For in the end, it is not the darkness that defines us, but how we choose to confront it. Hope you enjoyed that spine-chilling experience. Now, let's move on to the next creepy tale. Ready to face more thrilling moments together? Let's dive into the next story right away. Growing up in a tranquil little town was a unique and deeply enriching experience, one that left an indelible mark on my heart and soul. It was a place where familiarity was woven into the very fabric of daily life, where the sun's warm embrace seemed to linger indefinitely, casting a golden glow over everything it touched. The town itself was a haven of peace and simplicity, where the pace of life was gentle and unhurried, and where each day unfolded with a comforting predictability. It was a place where neighbors knew each other by name, where smiles were exchanged freely, and where the sense of community was as strong as the roots of the ancient trees that lined the streets. The rhythm of life was a soothing melody, one that lulled us into a sense of security and belonging. The streets were lined with charming houses, each with its own story, and the air was always filled with the scent of blooming flowers and fresh grass. Our family home, a modest yet welcoming abode, rested at the periphery of a sprawling forest. This forest, with its towering trees and whispering leaves, was a comforting presence that stood like a guardian of our peace, offering a sense of security and connection to nature. Its vast expanse was both mysterious and inviting, a place where adventures awaited and where the imagination could roam free. The forest was a world unto itself, a sanctuary of tranquility where time seemed to stand still. Within this serene setting, my family, comprised of my loving parents, my spirited younger sister, and our steadfast dog, Max, found solace and contentment. We were a close-knit unit, our lives interwoven with bonds of love and laughter, each day a testament to the joy of togetherness. Our home was filled with warmth and joy, a sanctuary where we could retreat from the world and find comfort in each other's company. The walls of our home echoed with the sounds of laughter and the gentle hum of everyday life. Yet, as with every seemingly serene existence, there lay beneath the surface a hidden current, an undercurrent of the unknown, and something ominous lay in wait, ready to disrupt the harmony we had taken for granted. Our story unfolded on a crisp autumn evening, a time when the air was filled with the earthy scent of fallen leaves and the promise of change. The sun's retreat painted the heavens in a breathtaking tapestry of orange and purple hues, a scene so vivid and beautiful it seemed almost otherworldly. It was a moment of tranquility, a fleeting glimpse of perfection that seemed to capture the very essence of our lives. Gathered around the dinner table, we basked in the glow of familial warmth, sharing stories and dreams, our laughter echoing within the walls of our cozy home. It was a ritual we cherished, a time to connect and reflect on the day's events, to share our hopes and dreams, and to find comfort in each other's presence. The aroma of our favorite meal filled the air, mingling with the laughter and love that seemed to radiate from every corner of the room. We would sit for hours, immersed in conversation, oblivious to the passage of time. But the tranquility was short-lived, as Max's sharp, unexpected barking pierced through the air, shattering the moment and pulling us back to reality. Positioned at the back door, his fur stood on end, a sentinel alerting us to a threat unseen. His barks were not mere noise. They carried an urgency and a warning that sent an involuntary shiver coursing through me. We tried to dismiss it as a reaction to woodland creatures or a distant vehicle, a rational explanation that seemed reasonable at the time. But deep down, we sensed that Max's alert was only the beginning of a harrowing ordeal that awaited us, an ordeal that would test our strength and unity. As nights evolved into an endless sequence of darkness and foreboding, Max's barking grew increasingly frenzied, a desperate plea trying to convey a warning we were yet to comprehend. He seemed to perceive a presence in the shadows, something invisible yet undeniably real, something that evoked a primal fear in him. Each evening, my father, our pillar of stability and strength, would venture into the night, flashlight in hand, scanning the shadows for a glimpse of what unsettled our loyal companion. Yet, despite his thorough searches and our growing unease, nothing appeared amiss. The nights were silent, the darkness impenetrable, and the source of Max's distress remained elusive. Still, the certainty in Max's growls was unsettling, and an oppressive sense of unease began to take root among us, an ever-present fog that clouded both our minds and our home, casting a shadow over our once peaceful lives. The nights felt longer, the darkness more profound, as if the very essence of our safe haven was being eroded by an unseen force. With each passing night, the atmosphere within our household started to morph, growing heavier and more charged with tension. It felt as if the air itself was pregnant with an impending storm that loomed unseen, a storm that threatened to upend our lives. I found myself lying awake, ears attuned to the nocturnal symphony of the forest, every rustle and crack amplified in the weighty silence. Max's nocturnal alerts became our nightly vigil, a relentless reminder that left us all on edge, assessing shadows with fresh wariness and a growing sense of dread. The once comforting sounds of the forest now seemed ominous, each creak and rustle a potential harbinger of doom. The night was no longer a time of rest, but a period of heightened alertness, where every sound was a potential threat. Then, on a moonless night, reality lurched beyond anything we could have foreseen. The outside world lay cloaked in unnerving blackness, a darkness so complete it seemed to swallow all light and hope. Max's frantic, desperate barking reached an unbearable crescendo, only to be silenced abruptly, as if an unseen force had snatched away his voice. The ensuing silence was so severe that it echoed louder than any cry, a void that seemed to pulse with malevolent intent. Realizing that danger had breached the boundaries of our safety, my father, his face a mask of determination and fear, armed himself with a bat and motioned for caution, urging us back into safety. Despite his warnings, fear and an irresistible pull of curiosity captured my spirit, leading me to shadow him into the oppressive night, my heart hammering in my chest with a rhythm that matched the enormity of our dread. The night air was thick with tension, each step a testament to our growing apprehension. Crossing the threshold onto the porch, reality crystallized as I perceived it. A forbidding silhouette emerged from the darkness, an entity larger and more menacing than any creature familiar to me. Its eyes bore an unsettling glow, exuding malevolence with a mesmerizing, sinister allure. It moved gracefully, its every step amplifying a terror that seemed to defy both logic and nature. My father, fearless against the encroaching fear, shouted at the beast, the bat an ineffective talisman against its ferocity. The creature, unfazed by any show of human resistance, propelled itself forward with unimaginable speed, and as chaos ensued, reality seemed to fracture. The world around us dissolved into chaos, a whirlwind of fear and confusion that consumed everything in its path. The subsequent moments blurred, a cacophony of terror mingling with the visceral sounds of conflict, the echo of screams, the guttural snarls of combat, and the sickening thud of impact as flesh met bone. My mother and sister, driven by love and desperation, rushed to aid, yet the creature's relentless fury seemed insurmountable. And in that seemingly hopeless juncture, it was Max who proved to be our savior. Hurling himself with pioneering bravery at the monstrous threat, Max afforded us the crucial, fleeting seconds to retreat indoors, hastily enacting a barricade against the impending menace. Yet, the cost of our salvation was unspeakably dear. The creature's fury was unlike anything we had ever encountered, a force of nature that seemed unstoppable and all-consuming. When dawn's light finally vanquished the night and solitude returned, the creature vanished into the recesses of the forest, taking with it our beloved Max, now a haunting absence and an everlasting void in our midst. His loss was a scar woven into our family's fabric, a painful reminder of bravery cut short. My father, once our patriarch of unwavering strength, was visibly shattered, and an overwhelming cauldron of guilt and helplessness consumed me in a manner I was unprepared to face. The weight of Max's absence was a constant presence, a reminder of the sacrifice he had made for our safety. As days transitioned to nights in our altered reality, I swore an oath to myself that unpreparedness and inaction would never define me again. Immersing myself in rigorous training, I sought knowledge and skills in self-defense and survival, determined to transform my grief into a weaponized force. Crafting a sleek, lethal blade, I christened it Max, a tribute to our noble protector. Each swing of the blade was a tribute to his memory, a promise that his sacrifice would not be in vain. With each precise swing of the blade, every drop of sweat that testified to my dedication, my resolve crystallized further into an indomitable will. Duty-bound, I vowed to shield my family from future threats, ever vigilant to the lurking perils in the shadows. The memory of that fateful night, stained with Max's sacrifice, remained etched in my consciousness, a solemn reminder of the heavy cost of complacency. The blade became an extension of my will, a symbol of my commitment to protect those I loved. Standing sentinel, watchful and unwavering, I ready myself for the unknown battles yet to unfold. The echoes of past terrors haunt my thoughts, yet simultaneously, they propel me onward, fueling an unyielding determination to defy fear and eclipse its power over my life. Max's essence endures within me, resonating through the weapon I wield, a steadfast symbol of my pledge to protect those I cherish, facing shadows with courage and conviction, and honoring the heroism of a lost but never forgotten guardian. As I stand on the precipice of the future, I am reminded of the lessons learned and the strength gained from the trials we endured. The shadows of the past may linger, but they no longer hold sway over my spirit. I am ready to face whatever challenges lie ahead, armed with the knowledge that love and bravery can overcome even the darkest of nights. The journey ahead is uncertain, but I am prepared, fortified by the memory of Max and the unwavering bond of family that no shadow can ever diminish. Hope you enjoyed that spine-chilling experience. Now, let's move on to the next creepy tale. Ready to face more thrilling moments together? Let's dive into the next story right away. As far back as my memory stretches, my cousin Jake was more than just a relative. He was like an integral piece of my very existence, always there, always a part of my world. We weren't merely cousins. We were like brothers, intricately woven together by a tapestry of shared experiences and mischievous escapades in our quaint, sleepy town. It was the kind of town where everyone knew everyone else's business, and every story, no matter how implausible, spread like wildfire, becoming part of our collective consciousness. Growing up side by side, our bond was not only unshakable but also unparalleled, a connection that was as natural as breathing. Yet, it was Jake's insatiable thirst for adventure, his relentless pursuit of the extraordinary, that often guided us into the most remarkable and, at times, bizarre predicaments. Among Jake's myriad of interests, nothing captured his keen, adventurous spirit quite like the legends and myths that seem to hover at the edges of our reality, especially those so spine-chilling that they'd make even the bravest among us shudder with fear from their terrifying whispers. Jake was completely enthralled by these stories, drawn to them with an intensity akin to a moth's fatal attraction to a flame. The tale that held the most fascination for him was that of Tall Tim, an enigmatic specter rumored to wander the decaying relics of places long forsaken by light and laughter. This looming figure supposedly haunted the shadowy, forgotten recesses of the old paper mill, his silhouette an indelible mark against the fading canvas of bygone industry and prosperity, a ghostly reminder of what once was. Jake's obsession with Tall Tim reached new heights as the summer drew near, setting the stage for what would become an unforgettable and chilling chapter of our childhoods. His desire to prove himself in front of his friends, to show them that it wasn't just talk, that he truly wasn't all bark and no bite, pushed him to hatch a plan that would draw us both into the heart of the terrifying legend. Naturally, being his closest confidant and partner in crime, I was swept along into this daring, albeit foolhardy, expedition. It was as if the very essence of adventure called to us, beckoning us to uncover the truth behind the myth. The day of our adventure arrived as any other unassuming Saturday, bright and cheery, belying the ominous undertones of our upcoming exploit. Armed with flashlights, a modest collection of snacks, and possibly faces more courageous than our pounding hearts, we plunged into the dense overgrowth that threatened to conceal the path leading to the paper mill. It was as if nature itself was conspiring to guard the secrets buried within those dilapidated walls. Each step we took announced our presence with a brittle crackling of leaves and an eerie snapping of twigs beneath our feet. The woods seemed to play a mournful symphony, marking every footfall with a whisper of what lay ahead, a foreboding melody that hinted at the mysteries we were about to unravel. Eventually, the paper mill materialized before us, a colossal and ghostly monument to a time long forgotten, standing as a sentinel of the past. Its towering smokestacks spiraled into the sky like the twisted digits of an ancient phantom striving to capture heaven itself. The entrance yawned wide, a cavernous mouth ready to engulf us in its darkness, beckoning us to step into its shadowy embrace. Despite every instinct in my gut urging me to turn back, Jake's determination was a beacon that refused to waver, pulling us ever forwards into the unknown. Once inside, the stale air clung to us like a shroud, thick with dust and the metallic scent of lingering decay, a testament to the years of neglect. Silence blanketed the vast interior, pressing in from all sides, the kind of disquiet that set your mind racing with imagined whispers lurking just beyond the visible. We moved with deliberate caution, our flashlights cutting wide arcs, casting shadows that mocked our bold intrusion with their wraith-like dance across the crumbling walls. It wasn't long until our investigative endeavor unearthed the morbid secrets concealed within the echoes of this forsaken place, secrets that would forever alter our perception of reality. Scattered about at odd intervals were the remnants of erstwhile lives, a forgotten wrench here, a ragged piece of attire there, and, beyond denial, the unmistakable specter of bones. Human bones. My stomach twisted into nauseating knots as realization clawed its way into my consciousness, assembling the macabre puzzle before us into a nightmarish scene. Jake, however, appeared curiously unfazed, his initial bravado diminishing ever so slightly as he examined the grim discoveries with an unsettling calmness, as if he were trying to piece together a puzzle that had eluded him for far too long. Then, out of the darkness came a movement that arrested our attention, my heartbeat vaulting to a frenzied pace. We froze, our flashlights snapping to the point of disturbance. There stood a figure, excessively elongated, cloaked in shadows that seemed to form a symbiotic fog around it. Was this the infamous Tall Tim brought to life, a myth materialized, or something more sinister yet? The sight of this apparition sent shivers down my spine, a visceral reaction that left me paralyzed with fear. An overwhelming tide of panic surged through my veins, and instinctively, Jake and I spun around and sprinted. The world warped into a blurred rush of chaotic images as we retraced our path, the spectral echo of footsteps mirroring our flight through the hollow, oppressive corridors. Every silent prayer, every desperate plea to whatever power might be listening, bubbled to the surface of my mind, a beacon of hope for our survival, a plea for deliverance from the nightmare we had unwittingly stepped into. Yet the whim of fate interceded with its own cruel designs. As we neared the longed-for exit, one moment Jake matched my stride, then in a terrible instant, he vanished, swallowed by the void behind me. His haunting scream fractured the air, reverberating through my very core as I staggered to an abrupt halt. Desperation seized me. I called out his name over and over, my voice crumbling into the oppressive silence that answered back, a silence that seemed to mock my futile attempts to reclaim him from the darkness. Frozen at the precipice, I battled within myself, torn between the primal urge to flee and an overpowering drive to reclaim my cousin from whatever malevolence held him. But fear's icy grip proved unyielding. I fled, tearing away from the spectral figure and encompassing shadows, albeit with the desperate hope that Jake was still close behind, that somehow he would emerge from the shadows and join me in the light. When I recounted our dreadful experience to the townspeople, their reactions greeted my tale with skepticism, bemused smiles often accompanied by patronizing glances. They chose to see an overzealous imagination rather than the stark truth. Jake's disappearance became another ghost story, a mystery seamlessly woven into the rich tapestry of our town's storied sanity. But I knew too well the reality of what lurked in the sinister corners of that forsaken mill, a reality that haunted my every waking moment. Even now, as I pen these recollections, the chill remains, as relentless as my enduring guilt. The whispers persist, a haunting reminder of what Jake and I stumbled upon, and the lurking malevolence that still roams the deserted echoes of days past. Tall Tim may be a name passed down through local lore, but something cold and restless lingers among those ruins, and it remembers. The memory of that day, of the terror and the loss, remains etched in my mind, a constant reminder of the darkness that lies just beyond the reach of light. Hope you enjoyed that spine-chilling experience. Now, let's move on to the next creepy tale. Ready to face more thrilling moments together? Let's dive into the next story right away. I never imagined that a simple visit to comfort a friend could spiral into a nightmare that would forever haunt my existence. It all began when my close friend, Melanie, reached out to me with the heartbreaking news of her grandmother's passing. I had met her grandmother only a few times, but her presence was unforgettable. An aura of mystery and wisdom surrounded her, much like the old house she lived in. When Melanie asked me to accompany her to the funeral, I didn't hesitate to say yes. Little did I know, this decision would lead me to an ancient ritual known as the Sin Eater. The day of the funeral was overcast, the sky heavy with clouds that mirrored the somber mood. Melanie's family home was nestled in a secluded area, surrounded by dense woods that seemed to whisper secrets of their own. As we arrived, I noticed the house was filled with relatives and friends, all gathered to pay their respects. Yet, there was an underlying tension in the air, as if everyone was anticipating something beyond the usual mourning. After the service, Melanie's uncle, a stern man with a gaze that seemed to pierce through the soul, approached me. He spoke of an ancient tradition passed down through generations, a ritual meant to cleanse the soul of the departed by transferring their sins to a willing participant. This participant, the Sin Eater, would consume bread and wine placed upon the chest of the deceased, symbolically taking on their sins. To my surprise, Melanie had suggested me for this role. I was taken aback, confused about why I was chosen for such a task. Despite my reservations, Melanie's pleading eyes and the insistence of her family swayed me. They assured me it was merely symbolic, a gesture of goodwill to honor her grandmother's memory. Reluctantly, I agreed, hoping to bring some solace to my grieving friend. As the ritual began, I felt a chill creep down my spine. The room was dimly lit, candles flickering as shadows danced along the walls. I stood before the open casket, a piece of bread and a goblet of wine placed carefully on the chest of Melanie's grandmother. With trembling hands, I performed the ritual, feeling the weight of unseen eyes upon me. The bread was dry, the wine bitter, and as I consumed them, a strange sensation washed over me, a heaviness, as if a dark cloud had settled within my very being. In the days following the ritual, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. I began experiencing vivid nightmares, shadowy figures lurking at the edges of my vision. The air around me felt dense, oppressive, as if I was constantly being watched by an unseen presence. Despite my attempts to rationalize these experiences, the sense of dread only grew stronger. Melanie's family, once so present, seemed to vanish overnight. Their phones disconnected, their house abandoned, as if they had never existed. Panic set in as I realized I was alone, left to grapple with the consequences of the ritual. I tried reaching out to Melanie, but she too had disappeared without a trace. The haunting presence followed me everywhere. I could feel it in the chill of the wind, see it in the flicker of shadows that seemed to mock my every move. Sleep became elusive, my nights filled with whispers that echoed in the darkness, accusing me of sins I couldn't comprehend. The burden of the ritual had become an inescapable part of me, a curse I couldn't shake off. Desperate for answers, I delved into research, uncovering the dark history of the Sin Eater ritual. It was said to bind the participant to the sins of the deceased, a sacrificial act that could never be undone. The more I learned, the more I realized the gravity of what I had done. I was trapped in a cycle of guilt and fear, haunted by the shadows of a past that wasn't mine. In my search for redemption, I sought out spiritual guidance, hoping to find a way to cleanse myself of the burden I carried. But every attempt only deepened the shadows, as if the very act of seeking salvation was an affront to the forces that bound me. I was a prisoner of my own making, ensnared in a web of darkness that threatened to consume me. As time went on, I came to understand that the ritual had forever altered my existence. The shadows were not just a haunting presence, they were a part of me, a constant reminder of the sins I had willingly taken on. I had become the Sin Eater, bound to the darkness until the end of my days. In the quiet moments, when the world was still, I could hear the whispers of those who had come before me, their voices a chorus of sorrow and regret. I had joined their ranks, a silent guardian of sins unspoken, forever burdened by the shadows I had chosen to embrace. And so, I remain, a solitary figure haunted by the past, forever intertwined with the darkness that dwells within. The burden of shadows is mine to bear, a testament to the choices we make and the consequences that follow. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the oppressive weight of my decision never lifted. Each morning, as the first rays of dawn filtered through my window, I awoke with a sense of dread, knowing that the shadows awaited me. They lingered in every corner, a constant reminder of the ritual that had bound me to this fate. I found myself avoiding mirrors, unable to face the reflection of a person I no longer recognized. My eyes, once full of life, now seemed hollow, as if the darkness had seeped into my very soul. Friends and acquaintances noticed the change in me, their concerned questions met with vague answers. How could I explain the inexplicable burden I carried? How could I make them understand the invisible chains that held me captive? In my quest for understanding, I visited libraries and archives, poring over ancient texts and forgotten manuscripts. I hoped to find a glimmer of hope, a way to reverse the curse that had ensnared me. Yet, every page I turned only deepened my despair, revealing the ritual's origins and the inescapable fate of those who became sin-eaters. It was a role that transcended time, a dark legacy passed down through generations. The more I learned, the more isolated I became. I withdrew from the world, retreating into the shadows that had become my constant companions. My home, once a place of comfort, now felt like a prison, its walls closing in on me as the whispers grew louder. They spoke of sins I couldn't remember, of transgressions that weren't mine, yet they clung to me like a second skin. Sleep offered no respite, as my dreams were plagued by visions of those who had come before me. Their faces, twisted in anguish, haunted my nights, their voices a mournful chorus that echoed in my mind. I awoke each morning drenched in sweat, the weight of their sorrow pressing down on me like a suffocating shroud. In moments of clarity, I considered reaching out for help, but fear held me back. How could I explain the supernatural burden I bore without sounding insane? The world outside seemed oblivious to the darkness that consumed me, its inhabitants blissfully unaware of the shadows lurking just beyond their perception. As the years passed, I resigned myself to my fate. I became a silent observer, watching life unfold around me while I remained trapped in my own personal purgatory. The shadows were my constant companions, their presence a reminder of the choices I had made and the consequences I would forever bear. I often wondered about Melanie and her family, their sudden disappearance a mystery that gnawed at the edges of my sanity. Had they known the true nature of the ritual? Had they willingly sacrificed me to the darkness, knowing the burden I would carry? These questions remained unanswered, lost to the void of silence that surrounded me. In the rare moments of peace, I found solace in the knowledge that I was not alone. The whispers of the past, once a source of torment, became a comfort, a connection to those who had walked this path before me. Together, we formed an unspoken bond, a fraternity of souls bound by the weight of sins unspoken. And so, I continue to exist, a solitary figure shrouded in shadows, forever haunted by the past. The burden of shadows is mine to bear, a testament to the choices we make and the consequences that follow. In the end, I have come to accept my role as the Sin Eater, a guardian of darkness, forever intertwined with the sins of those who have gone before. Hope you enjoyed that spine-chilling experience. Now, let's move on to the next creepy tale. Ready to face more thrilling moments together? Let's dive into the next story right away. I remember the day the storm began as if it were etched into my mind with icy claws. The morning had started innocuously enough, with a gentle snowfall blanketing our small town in a pristine white coat. I had always found a certain peace in the silence of snow, but that day, the quiet felt ominous, as if the world were holding its breath. By noon, the wind had picked up, howling through the streets like a banshee's wail. I was at the local diner, sipping on a cup of coffee and watching the flakes dance erratically outside the window. The news on the radio warned of an incoming blizzard, urging everyone to stay indoors. But in our town, nestled in the mountains and used to harsh winters, such warnings were often met with a shrug. As the afternoon wore on, the storm grew fiercer. I decided it was time to head home. The streets were nearly deserted, the usual hustle and bustle replaced by eerie stillness. The snow was falling so thick and fast that it was hard to see more than a few feet ahead. I could feel the cold seeping through my layers, biting at my skin. When I finally reached my house, I was relieved to be out of the wind's relentless grip. I checked my phone, no service. The power flickered ominously before going out entirely, plunging me into darkness. I fumbled for the flashlight I kept in the kitchen drawer, the beam cutting through the shadows like a lifeline. The hours dragged on, the storm outside a constant roar. I tried to distract myself with a book, but my mind kept wandering back to the storm. It felt alive, as if it had a mind of its own, and its intentions were anything but benign. By nightfall, the blizzard had become a full-fledged monster. I could hear the trees groaning under the weight of the snow, branches snapping like bones. The house creaked and shuddered, as if it too were trying to withstand the storm's fury. I peered out the window, but all I could see was a wall of white. The world outside had vanished, swallowed by the storm. I felt a pang of isolation, a creeping fear that I was cut off from everything and everyone. Sleep was elusive that night. I lay in bed, listening to the storm's symphony, my mind conjuring up images of what might be happening outside. I thought of my neighbors, wondering if they were safe. I thought of the old man who lived alone at the edge of town, his frail body no match for such cold. I thought of the children who might be scared, huddled under blankets, seeking warmth and comfort. The next morning, the storm showed no signs of abating. The snowdrifts were higher than I had ever seen, barricading me inside. I tried the door, but it wouldn't budge. Panic began to set in. I was trapped. Days passed in a blur of white and fear. The storm was relentless, a beast that refused to be tamed. I rationed my supplies, each meal a reminder of my dwindling resources. The cold was a constant companion, seeping into my bones, making it hard to think, to move, to hope. I tried to keep track of the days, marking them on a calendar, but time seemed to stretch and warp in the storm's grip. I felt myself slipping into a haze, the line between reality and nightmare blurring. On what I guessed was the fifth day, I heard a sound that sent a jolt of adrenaline through my body, a voice. It was faint, almost drowned out by the wind, but unmistakable. I rushed to the window, my heart pounding. Was it a rescue team? A neighbor? Or was it something else, something the storm had brought with it? I called out, my voice hoarse from disuse, but there was no response. The voice had vanished, leaving me alone with my thoughts and fears. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was out there, lurking in the snow, watching, waiting. The storm continued its relentless assault, a force of nature that cared nothing for human life. I thought of the stories I'd heard as a child, of spirits that roamed the mountains, taking vengeance on those who dared to defy them. I had always dismissed them as myths, but now, trapped and desperate, they seemed all too real. As the days turned into a week, my hope began to wane. I was weak, the cold sapping my strength, the isolation gnawing at my sanity. I couldn't remember the last time I had felt warmth or heard another human voice. On what I feared might be my last day, I heard the voice again. It was closer this time, clearer. I stumbled to the window, my breath fogging the glass. Through the swirling snow, I saw a figure, indistinct and shadowy. It beckoned to me, a silent invitation. I knew I should be afraid, but something inside me stirred, a flicker of defiance. I couldn't stay here, waiting for the storm to claim me. I had to act, to take a chance, to believe that there was still hope. With trembling hands, I forced the door open, the snow cascading in around me. The cold was a shock, but it was invigorating, a reminder that I was still alive. I stepped out into the blizzard, the wind tearing at my clothes, the snow blinding me. I followed the figure, its shape shifting and elusive, always just out of reach. I stumbled and fell, the snow swallowing me, but I pushed on, driven by a determination I hadn't known I possessed. Hours passed, or maybe just minutes. Time had no meaning in the storm. I was exhausted, my body screaming for rest, but I kept moving, the figure my only guide. Finally, I saw it, a light, faint and flickering, but unmistakable. It was a beacon, a promise of safety, of warmth. I stumbled towards it, my heart soaring with hope. As I drew closer, I realized the light was coming from a cabin, its windows glowing invitingly. I reached the door, my hands numb and clumsy, and knocked with all the strength I could muster. The door opened, and I was enveloped in warmth and light. A man stood there, his face kind and withered. He pulled me inside, his voice a balm to my frayed nerves. "You're safe now," he said, his words a lifeline. "The storm can't hurt you here." I collapsed into a chair, the relief overwhelming. I was safe. I had survived the storm's wrath. As I sat there, wrapped in a blanket and sipping hot tea, I thought of the figure that had guided me. I asked the man if he had seen anyone else out there, but he shook his head. "Just you," he said. "You're lucky to be alive." I nodded, though I couldn't shake the feeling that I owed my life to something, or someone, beyond my understanding. The storm had taken so much, but it had also given me a second chance. As I drifted into a deep, dreamless sleep, I knew I would never forget the storm, or the whispers in the blizzard that had led me home. Hope you enjoyed that spine-chilling experience. Now, let's move on to the next creepy tale. Ready to face more thrilling moments together? Let's dive into the next story right away. The sun was beginning its descent, casting a warm, golden hue over the vast Texas landscape as I navigated my weathered pickup truck down the long, dusty road leading to Whispering Pines. This small town, nestled in the heart of Texas, had always intrigued me. Its name was misleading, as there were no pines to be found, just endless expanses of flatlands dotted with the occasional tumbleweed. I had heard countless tales about this place, whispers of its unsettling past that piqued my curiosity and compelled me to visit. The stories spoke of a town with a haunted history, where shadows of the past lingered in every corner, and I felt an irresistible pull to uncover its mysteries, to understand the truth behind the legends that surrounded it. The journey to Whispering Pines was not just a drive through the Texas plains, it was a voyage into the unknown, a quest to unravel the enigmatic threads of its history. As I pulled into the town, an eerie silence greeted me. The streets were almost deserted, with only a few locals casting wary glances my way as I drove by. The town seemed to wear a shroud of decay, with buildings that appeared to have been abandoned by time itself. Paint peeled from the walls, and windows were clouded with dust, giving the impression of a place forgotten by the world. The silence was profound, broken only by the occasional rustle of a tumbleweed skittering across the road. My destination was the only bar in town, a place aptly named The Last Prayer. It struck me as an odd name for a bar, but then again, this was a town steeped in oddities. The name seemed to echo the desperation that clung to the town's history, a final plea for salvation in a place where hope had long since faded. It was as if the town itself was a relic of a bygone era, a place trapped in a time loop, unable to move forward or forget its past. I pushed open the creaky door, and a dimly lit room greeted me, filled with the unmistakable smell of stale beer. The patrons, a handful of rough-looking men, turned their heads to scrutinize me with suspicion in their eyes. Their gazes were sharp, as if assessing whether I was a threat or just another curious soul passing through. The atmosphere was thick with tension, a palpable unease that settled over the room like a heavy fog. Undeterred by their scrutiny, I made my way to the bar and settled onto one of the worn-out stools. The seat creaked under my weight, a testament to the countless travelers who had sat there before me, seeking refuge or perhaps answers in a town that offered neither easily. It was a place where stories were exchanged in hushed tones, where secrets were guarded fiercely, and where the past was never far from the present. The bartender, a grizzled old man whose name tag identified him as Joe, approached me with a nod of acknowledgement. His face was lined with age, each wrinkle telling a story of its own. His eyes, however, held a certain wariness, as if he had seen too much and trusted too little. "What'll it be?" he asked, his voice raspy from what must have been years of smoking. There was a guarded quality to his demeanor, a reluctance to engage with the unknown. His presence was a constant in the bar, a fixture that seemed as old as the town itself, as if he were the keeper of its secrets. "Whiskey," I replied, striving to maintain an air of nonchalance. As Joe poured me a glass, I decided to engage him in conversation. "Quiet town you got here," I remarked, hoping to draw him out. There was a tension in the air, an unspoken understanding that outsiders were not entirely welcome. The town's insular nature was evident in every wary glance, every whispered conversation that ceased as I passed. It was a place that had learned to protect itself, to shield its heart from the curious and the uninvited. Joe let out a dry chuckle. "Ain't much to do around these parts. Folks here keep to themselves," he said, his tone carrying a hint of resignation. His words were tinged with a sense of isolation, a reflection of a community that had learned to rely solely on itself. It was a place that had turned inward, guarding its secrets jealously against the prying eyes of outsiders. The town was a fortress, its walls built not of stone but of silence and suspicion, a place where the past was ever present, casting its long shadow over the present. I took a sip of the whiskey, savoring the warmth that spread through me. "Heard the town used to be called Jefferson. Any truth to that?" I inquired, my curiosity getting the better of me. The change in name seemed to hold a story of its own, a transformation that hinted at deeper secrets, at a past that the residents seemed eager to forget. It was a question that hung in the air, a challenge to the silence that had settled over the town like a shroud. Joe's eyes narrowed slightly, and he leaned in closer, as if to ensure our conversation remained private. "You've been asking questions, huh?" "Yeah, it was Jefferson once. Long time ago," he replied, his voice tinged with a hint of nostalgia. There was a flicker of something in his eyes, a memory perhaps, of a time before everything changed. His words carried the weight of history, of events that had shaped the town and its people in ways that were not easily undone. It was a glimpse into a world that had been, a world that had vanished but left its mark indelibly on the present. I sensed there was more to the story, so I pressed on. "Why the change?" I asked, eager to uncover the town's secrets. The air seemed to grow heavier, as if the very walls of the bar were listening in on our conversation. There was a sense of anticipation, as if the town itself was holding its breath, waiting to see if its secrets would finally be revealed. It was a moment suspended in time, a crossroads where the past and present converged, where the truth lay just beyond reach, waiting to be discovered. Joe hesitated for a moment, casting a furtive glance around the bar to ensure no one was eavesdropping. "Legend has it," The town made a deal with the devil himself, promised him the souls of their descendants in exchange for prosperity. He confided, his voice barely above a whisper. His words hung in the air, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lay beneath the town's surface. It was a tale as old as time, a cautionary story of ambition and its dire consequences. It was a pact that had been made in desperation, a bargain struck in the shadows, a choice that had set the town on a path from which there was no return. I raised an eyebrow, intrigued by the tale. And did they get it? I asked, leaning in closer. The idea of such a pact was both fascinating and terrifying, a testament to the lengths people would go to for a taste of success. It was a story that resonated with the human condition, the eternal struggle between desire and morality. It was a question that lingered in the air, a challenge to the silence that had settled over the town like a shroud. For a while, Joe admitted, his voice carrying the weight of history. But deals with the devil never end well. Towns started dying, and folks got real suspicious of outsiders. Changed the name to Whispering Pines to try and forget, he explained, his words hanging heavily in the air. The name change seemed like an attempt to bury the past, to erase the stain of their ancestors' choices. It was a futile effort, a desperate bid to escape the inevitable consequences of their actions. The town was a living testament to the cost of ambition, a reminder that the past could never truly be forgotten, only faced. The atmosphere in the bar grew tense, and I could feel the eyes of the other patrons on me. They were listening intently, and it was clear they didn't like what they were hearing. There was an unspoken agreement among them to protect their town's secrets, to guard the truth from prying eyes. The air was thick with hostility, a palpable reminder of the town's insular nature. I finished my drink and decided it was time to leave. As I stood up, Joe gave me a hard look. "Best be on your way, stranger. This town ain't friendly to outsiders," he warned, his voice carrying an unmistakable edge. It was a clear message that my presence was no longer welcome, a reminder that I had overstayed my welcome in a place that guarded its secrets fiercely. I nodded, leaving a few bills on the counter before making my way to the door. But as I stepped outside, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The streets were empty, yet I felt a presence, something dark and foreboding lurking just out of sight. The shadows seemed to stretch and twist, as if alive with the secrets they concealed. It was as if the town itself was watching, waiting to see if I would uncover the truth or leave in ignorance. The air was thick with tension, a reminder that the past was never far behind, always waiting to catch up. As I walked back to my truck, the weight of the town's history pressed down on me, like a heavy fog that refused to lift. I could feel the whispers of the past, the cries of those who had been sacrificed for a fleeting taste of prosperity. The air was thick with the echoes of their suffering, a haunting reminder of the cost of their ambition. It was a burden that the town carried, a legacy of choices made long ago that could not be undone. And as I reached my truck, I paused, turning back to look at the town one last time. In that moment, I revealed my true nature. I was not just any traveler passing through. I was the devil, returned to Whispering Pines to collect what was owed to me. The souls of the townspeople were mine, promised long ago in a desperate prayer for prosperity. The pact had been sealed, and now it was time to fulfill it. The air grew colder, and the shadows lengthened as I smiled, knowing that the time had come to fulfill the bargain. Whispering Pines would pay its debt, and I would ensure that the whispers of its past would never be forgotten. As the darkness enveloped the town, I could feel the anticipation in the air, the inevitable reckoning that was to come. The town's secrets, once buried and forgotten, would rise to the surface, and I would be there to witness it all. The cycle of promise and payment, of hope and despair, would continue, and I would remain ever watchful, ever present, as the guardian of their fate. It was a role I had played countless times before, a reminder that the past could never truly be escaped, only faced. The town was a living testament to the cost of ambition, a reminder that the past could never truly be forgotten, only faced. Hope you enjoyed that spine-chilling experience. Now, let's move on to the next creepy tale. Ready to face more thrilling moments together? Let's dive into the next story right away. Chess was never a game I held in high regard. To me, it seemed nothing more than a meticulous dance of carved figures across a board of alternating colors, a pastime reserved for those endowed with patience and strategic acumen, qualities I admittedly lacked. I had always seen it as a pursuit for the intellectually inclined, a domain I had neither the courage nor the inclination to explore. That perception, however, shattered the day I crossed paths with the devil and unearthed the profound depths of the game, a game that would intertwine my destiny with the supernatural in ways I could scarcely imagine. It was on a brisk autumn evening that I found myself meandering through the dimly lit streets, making my way home. The air was crisp, each breath a reminder of the season's chill, and the fallen leaves crunched beneath my feet as I walked. My mind was a chaotic swirl of thoughts, none of which were particularly coherent, as I mulled over the mundane trivialities of my existence. It was during this aimless wandering that I first noticed the peculiar figure standing under the flickering streetlight at the corner of the road. The figure, a man, or so I initially believed, was enveloped in a long, shadowy coat that seemed to devour the light around it. His face was obscured by the brim of a wide-brimmed hat, casting a shadow that concealed his features in an unsettling manner. As I drew closer, he lifted his head, and I was met with a pair of eyes that seemed to pierce through the very essence of my being. They glowed with an eerie, unnatural light, sending a shiver down my spine that I could not ignore. "Would you care for a game?" he inquired, his voice smooth and inviting, yet laced with an undertone that set my nerves on edge. Before I could muster a response, he gestured toward a small, ancient-looking chessboard that had materialized on a nearby bench, as if conjured from the very air itself. I hesitated, every instinct within me screaming to turn and flee, yet an inexplicable curiosity and a strange compulsion held me rooted to the spot. "What are the stakes?" I found myself asking, though I wasn't entirely sure why those words had left my lips. He smiled, a slow, unsettling grin that revealed teeth far too sharp to belong to any ordinary man. "Your life," he replied simply, his voice carrying a weight that seemed to echo in the stillness of the night. "And should you emerge victorious, you shall gain something far more valuable." A prudent individual would have declined the offer and hurried home without a backward glance, but I was neither prudent nor wise. Perhaps it was the allure of the unknown, or the thrill of the challenge that ignited a fire within me, but I agreed. We settled into our seats, and the game commenced. As we played, time itself seemed to distort and warp. The world around us faded into obscurity, leaving only the board and the pieces that moved across it with a life of their own. It became apparent all too quickly that I was outmatched. The devil played with a mastery that was both mesmerizing and terrifying. Each calculated move he made seemed to tighten an invisible noose around my neck, drawing me inexorably closer to an inevitable end. But just as despair began to take root in my heart, I sensed a presence beside me. A woman, ethereal and commanding, materialized at my side. Her eyes blazed with an intensity that mirrored the devil's own, and I knew instantly that she was not of this world. She whispered words of guidance, her voice a soothing balm to my frayed nerves and growing anxiety. With her assistance, I began to perceive the board in a new light. The pieces were no longer mere wooden figures, but extensions of my will, and I maneuvered them with a newfound sense of purpose and clarity. The tide of the game shifted in my favor, and the devil's confident facade began to crumble. In a final, desperate gambit, I managed to corner his king, delivering checkmate with a trembling hand and a heart pounding with disbelief. The devil's eyes flared with anger, but he nodded in reluctant acknowledgement of his defeat. "You have earned your prize," he conceded, his voice a low, rumbling growl that resonated in the air. The woman beside me smiled, a gesture filled with warmth and strength, and placed her hand gently on my forehead. I felt a searing heat, and when she withdrew her hand, a mark remained, a symbol of my victory and a reminder of the bond one now shared with forces beyond human comprehension. As the devil vanished into the shadows of the night, I understood that my life would never be the same. I had confronted the darkness and emerged victorious, yet the mark served as a constant reminder of the hidden world beneath the surface of reality, a world where courage, friendship, and the supernatural intertwined in ways I was only beginning to comprehend. With each passing day, I delved deeper into the mysteries of the mark and the connection it represented. I learned to navigate the shadows, guided by the enigmatic woman who had become both mentor and ally. Together, we explored the boundaries of our world and the next, unraveling secrets that defied the limits of human understanding and logic. The game of chess, once a symbol of my ignorance and indifference, had transformed into a metaphor for life itself, a complex interplay of strategy, risk, and the eternal struggle between light and dark. And as I moved forward, I carried with me the invaluable lessons of that fateful night, forever marked by the encounter that had irrevocably altered my destiny. Every day, the mark on my forehead seemed to pulse with an energy that connected me to something greater, something beyond my comprehension. It was as if I had been initiated into a secret society, one that operated in the shadows of the everyday world. The woman, whom I came to know as my guide, revealed to me the intricacies of this hidden realm. Her teachings were profound, her knowledge vast, and I absorbed every lesson with a hunger I had never known before. Together, we ventured into places that defied the very laws of nature, where the boundaries between the physical and the ethereal blurred. I learned to see beyond the veil of reality, to perceive the threads that wove our world to the next. The mark on my forehead served as both a key and a compass, guiding me through the labyrinth of secrets that lay before us. As I grew more adept, I realized that the game of chess had been a mere introduction, a metaphorical gateway into a much larger game, one where the stakes were infinitely higher. The moves I made now were not confined to a board, but played out in the tapestry of existence itself. Each decision carried weight, each action a ripple in the fabric of reality. The woman, my mentor, became more than just a guide. She was a companion on this journey of discovery. Her presence was a constant source of strength, her wisdom a beacon in the darkness. Together, we faced challenges that tested our resolve, encountered entities that defied description, and uncovered truths that reshaped my understanding of the universe. In this new reality, the line between friend and foe was often blurred, and trust was a commodity as precious as life itself. The mark on my forehead, while a symbol of my victory over the devil, also marked me as a player in this grand cosmic game. It attracted attention, both benign and malevolent, and I learned to navigate this treacherous landscape with caution and cunning. Through it all, the lessons of that fateful night remained etched in my mind. The encounter with the devil had been a catalyst, a turning point that set me on this path of enlightenment and peril. The game of chess, once a trivial pursuit, had become a profound allegory for the choices we make and the battles we fight in the arena of life. As I continued on this journey, I embraced the challenges that lay ahead, armed with the knowledge that I was no longer the person I once was. The encounter with the devil had changed me irrevocably, but it had also opened my eyes to the limitless possibilities that lay beyond the ordinary. I was a part of something greater now, a participant in a cosmic dance that transcended the boundaries of time and space. With each new day, I stepped further into the unknown, guided by the mark on my forehead and the unwavering support of my mentor. The path was fraught with danger and uncertainty, but it was also filled with wonder and discovery. And as I moved forward, I knew that the lessons of the past would continue to shape my destiny, forever intertwined with the supernatural forces that had become an integral part of my existence. Hope you enjoyed that spine-chilling experience. Now, let's move on to the next creepy tale. Ready to face more thrilling moments together? Let's dive into the next story right away. Suspended between the realms of sleep and wakefulness, I found myself entrapped in a peculiar state where the boundaries of reality and dreams entwined in a haunting, unending dance. This surreal limbo, where consciousness wavered and the tangible world seemed to dissolve into an ethereal mist, marked the beginning of a journey that would unravel the intricate fabric of my sanity. It was a journey that delved into the shadowed recesses of my consciousness, challenging the very core of my existence and forcing me to confront fears I had long buried. This state of being, neither here nor there, seemed to stretch on endlessly, engulfing me in a world where time lost its meaning and the familiar became foreign. I felt as though I was floating in a sea of uncertainty, where every thought and emotion was amplified, echoing within the confines of my mind and creating a cacophony of confusion and apprehension. The sensation was as if I was suspended in a vast, infinite void, with no anchor to reality, leaving me vulnerable to the whims of my own subconscious. Each fleeting moment seemed to stretch into eternity, as I grappled with the disconcerting feeling of being unmoored from the tangible world I once knew. The whispers of forgotten dreams and half-formed thoughts swirled around me, weaving a tapestry of bewilderment and unease that threatened to engulf my very essence. It was in this disorienting, liminal space that my unsettling journey commenced, a journey poised to unravel the intricate fabric of my sanity, delving into the shadowed recesses of my consciousness and challenging the very core of my existence. Upon awakening, the gentle, muted hues of a morning sun filtered softly through lace curtains, casting delicate, intricate patterns across the walls of a room that was painfully familiar yet bewilderingly unfamiliar. The atmosphere was heavy with nostalgia, each detail a poignant reminder of a past that seemed both near and distant. This was unmistakably my childhood home, a place of comfort and memories, a sanctuary I had not stepped foot in for countless years. Each detail was precisely as I recalled, the comforting aroma of lavender that lingered in the air, the creaking floorboards that sang with decades of history, the intricate wallpaper with its familiar tendrils and designs. Yet beneath this enticing veneer of nostalgia, an unsettling dissonance whispered within the silence, subtly hinting at something ominous lurking beneath the surface, a dark presence waiting to be uncovered. The house seemed alive, breathing softly in the silence, its walls holding secrets that were both mine and not mine, echoing with the laughter and tears of a past I could no longer fully grasp. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the curtains, seemed imbued with a sense of foreboding, as if the house itself was aware of my presence and sought to communicate its hidden truths. The weight of history hung heavy in the air, pressing down upon me with an intangible force that both comforted and unsettled me in equal measure. As I stood there, enveloped in the familiar yet alien embrace of my childhood sanctuary, the whispers of the past seemed to call out to me, urging me to uncover the mysteries that lay hidden within the walls of this once familiar haven. As I commenced dressing for school, a profound sense of unease gnawed mercilessly at my insides, as if awakening a long-dormant serpent of dread coiled tightly around my soul. The reflection that stared back at me from the mirror seemed disturbingly foreign, eyes shadowed by fears unspoken, haunted by an unacknowledged dread that lingered at the edges of my awareness. I attempted to shake off the unsettling feeling, dismissing it as remnants of forgotten nightmares that clung stubbornly to the frail edges of my consciousness. Little did I realize, the nightmare was merely beginning its relentless encroachment upon the fragile threads of my reality. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat a reminder of the looming dread that threatened to unravel the very essence of my being, as if warning me of the trials that lay ahead. The mirror seemed to reflect not just my physical appearance, but the turmoil that churned within me, a silent witness to the internal battle I waged against the creeping shadows of doubt and fear. As I donned my clothes, each article felt like a layer of armor, a feeble attempt to shield myself from the intangible threats that awaited me beyond the threshold of my home. The act of dressing, once a mundane routine, had transformed into a ritual of preparation, a silent acknowledgement of the challenges that lay ahead and the resilience required to face them. Each button fastened, each shoe laced, was a testament to my determination to confront the unknown, to stand firm against the encroaching darkness that threatened to consume me. The journey to school on the bus unfolded as a surreal experience, a passage through a distorted, twisted reality where familiar faces morphed into ghostly apparitions from another world. Their eyes, once warm and nurturing, now appeared cold and indifferent, following me with an intensity that was unsettling and invasive, making my skin crawl with an inexplicable dread. Despite the mounting sense of foreboding that surrounded me, I endeavored to focus on the rhythmic hum of the bus engine, seeking solace in its mechanical consistency amidst the chaotic tumult of my mind. The world outside the window blurred into a kaleidoscope of colors and shapes, each turn of the wheels taking me further into an unknown realm where reality and illusion danced a perilous waltz, challenging my perceptions and testing the limits of my sanity. The familiar landmarks of my daily commute seemed to shift and warp, as if viewed through a distorted lens, leaving me questioning the reliability of my own senses. The whispers of the other passengers, once a comforting background noise, now seemed laden with hidden meanings and unspoken judgments, adding to the growing sense of alienation that gnawed at my core. The bus ride, once a predictable journey from one point to another, had transformed into a voyage through a landscape of uncertainty, where the boundaries between reality and illusion blurred and shifted with each passing moment. As the bus rumbled on, I clung to the familiar hum of the engine, a lifeline amidst the swirling chaos that threatened to overwhelm my senses and unravel the tenuous threads of my sanity. Upon arriving at school, the atmosphere underwent a dramatic transformation, as if some unseen force had subtly altered the very fabric of reality. The corridors were enveloped in an eerie, oppressive silence, punctuated only by the distant clatter of lockers closing and the hushed whispers of students exchanging secrets and stories. As I navigated through the labyrinthine hallways, I felt an invisible force closing in around me, constricting and oppressive, as if the walls themselves were conspiring against my fragile sanity, seeking to ensnare me within their confining embrace. Each step I took echoed ominously, the sound reverberating through the halls like a harbinger of doom, a reminder of the unseen dangers lurking just beyond the periphery of my vision, waiting to strike when I least expected it. The familiar sights and sounds of the school environment took on a sinister quality, as if the very essence of the place had been tainted by an invisible malice that sought to consume all who dared to tread its halls. The faces of my peers, once sources of camaraderie and support, now seemed twisted and distorted, their expressions unreadable and their intentions shrouded in mystery. The very air seemed charged with an unspoken tension, a palpable reminder of the unseen forces at play, as if the school itself had become a living entity, aware of my presence and intent on testing the limits of my endurance. Each step forward felt like a step deeper into the unknown, a journey into a realm where the rules of reality no longer applied and the boundaries of my understanding were constantly challenged. It wasn't long before the attacks began, insidiously at first, a subtle shove here, a whispered taunt there, slipping beneath the radar of my awareness. But soon, they escalated into a relentless, unyielding onslaught of violence and malice. I found myself ensnared in a waking nightmare, surrounded by classmates who had transformed into tormentors, their faces grotesquely twisted into masks of sadistic cruelty and malevolence. Bloodied, battered, and on the brink of despair, I stumbled through the chaos that engulfed me, desperately seeking refuge from the madness that sought to consume and obliterate me. My mind was an unceasing cacophony of fear and confusion, each heartbeat echoing like a relentless, unyielding death knell. In a final, desperate bid for escape, I collapsed, consciousness slipping away like grains of sand through grasping fingers, my awareness fading into blackness. The darkness enveloped me, a merciful release from the torment, yet even in that void, the echoes of my suffering lingered, whispering promises of a return to the nightmare I so desperately sought to escape. The relentless barrage of physical and emotional assaults left me reeling, each blow a reminder of my vulnerability and isolation in a world that had turned against me. As I lay on the cold, unforgiving ground, the weight of my despair threatened to crush my spirit, leaving me teetering on the brink of surrender to the encroaching darkness. The chaos that surrounded me was a reflection of the turmoil within, a manifestation of the fears and insecurities that had long haunted my subconscious, now brought to life in a twisted, nightmarish reality. Each moment of torment was a reminder of the fragility of my existence, a testament to the darkness that lurked within the recesses of my mind, waiting to emerge and challenge the very essence of my being. When I regained consciousness, I found myself no longer within the confines of the school. The room surrounding me was unfamiliar, its walls adorned with faded photographs and dusty trinkets, relics from another time, speaking of forgotten tales and memories long since faded. A woman stood before me, her features obscured by shadows, a presence both comforting and unsettling, an enigma shrouded in mystery, a paradox that only served to deepen my disorientation and unease. Her eyes, though hidden in the dim light, seemed to hold a universe of emotions, a silent testament to the bond we shared, a connection that transcended the boundaries of life and death, bridging the chasm between the living and the departed. The room itself seemed to pulse with a life of its own, each object a silent witness to the passage of time and the stories it held within its walls. The air was thick with the scent of nostalgia, a bittersweet reminder of the past and the ties that bound me to it, even as I struggled to comprehend the reality of my current situation. The presence of the woman, both familiar and foreign, added to the complexity of my emotions. A reminder of the connections that transcended the limitations of the physical world and spoke to the enduring bonds of love and memory. As I lay there, enveloped in the warmth of her presence, the shadows of my past seemed to recede, replaced by a sense of peace and understanding that transcended the boundaries of my conscious awareness. In that pivotal, unveiling moment, clarity pierced through the dense fog enveloping my mind. This woman, this ethereal apparition, was my mother, a mother who had long since departed from the mortal realm, her essence lingering in the shadows of memory and loss. Anger surged within me, a fiery, defiant spirit that banished the tendrils of fear attempting to suffocate my struggling spirit. I refused to become a mere pawn in this macabre charade, fueled by a growing resolve that burned brightly amidst the encroaching darkness threatening to swallow me whole. Her presence ignited a spark within me, a beacon of hope and strength, guiding me through the murky waters of my despair, urging me to confront the demons that sought to bind me to a fate I refused to accept. The realization of her presence was both a balm and a burden, a reminder of the love and loss that had shaped my journey and the unyielding strength I had inherited from her. As I stood before her, the weight of my past and the promise of my future converged in a moment of profound clarity, illuminating the path I must take to reclaim my sense of self and purpose. The connection we shared transcended the limitations of the physical world, a testament to the enduring power of love and memory, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming darkness, there existed a light that could guide me toward redemption and renewal. Emboldened by newfound determination and clarity, I navigated the labyrinthine corridors of this nightmarish realm, evading the monstrous entities lurking in the shadows, each step a battle, a testament to my unwavering will to survive. Yet, as I emerged into the blinding, purifying light of day, realizing the true cost of my escape, a painful, bittersweet awareness settled over my weary soul. The world I returned to was both familiar and alien, a reflection of the life I once knew, yet forever altered by the trials I had endured. The scars left by my ordeal were etched deeply into the fabric of my being, a constant reminder of the darkness I had faced and the strength I had found within myself to overcome it. The journey through the shadowed corridors of my mind had left its mark, reshaping my perceptions and redefining the boundaries of my reality. As I stepped into the light, the echoes of my past reverberated within me, a haunting reminder of the battles fought and the resilience forged in the crucible of my trials. The world around me, once a source of comfort and familiarity, now seemed imbued with a sense of mystery and uncertainty, a reminder of the ever-shifting nature of reality and the challenges that lay ahead. Each step forward was a testament to my resilience and determination, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming adversity, I possessed the strength to forge a new path and reclaim my sense of self and purpose. Memories, once vivid and cherished, had been cruelly and irrevocably stripped away, leaving only fragmented remnants of a life that now felt foreign and distant. I was a stranger to myself, a wanderer in a world devoid of familiarity, a lost soul adrift amidst the echoes of the forgotten. Each step I took was haunted by these reminders, whispers of the darkness lying just beyond the thin veil of perceived reality. The past, once a comforting presence, now loomed like a specter, its tendrils reaching out to ensnare me in its grasp, threatening to pull me back into the abyss from which I had fought so hard to escape. The journey through the shadows had left me irrevocably changed, my identity fractured and my sense of self fragmented, yet within that brokenness lay the seeds of renewal and transformation. As I traversed the landscape of my memories, the echoes of my former self called out to me, urging me to piece together the fragments of my past and forge a new path forward. The journey through the shadows had left me irrevocably changed, my identity fractured and my sense of self fragmented, yet within that brokenness lay the seeds of renewal and transformation. As I traversed the landscape of my memories, the echoes of my former self called out to me, urging me to piece together the fragments of my past and forge a new path forward. The journey through the shadows had left me irrevocably changed, my identity fractured and my sense of self fragmented, yet within that brokenness lay the seeds of renewal and transformation. As I traversed the landscape of my memories, the echoes of my former self called out to me, urging me to piece together the fragments of my past and forge a new path forward. In the end, I was free from the twisted grasp of the nightmare, yet the profound question of at what cost loomed ominously, an enigma lost within the labyrinth of my shattered, fractured mind. As I ventured beyond the boundaries of the known into the enigmatic unknown, I carried the weight of 1,000 unanswered questions, a burdensome legacy of haunting echoes and fragmented memories tethered to a past that steadfastly refused to be forgotten, echoing relentlessly through the corridors of my soul. The journey ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges and revelations yet to be uncovered, but I faced it with a newfound strength and resilience, determined to forge a path through the darkness and reclaim the fragments of my identity scattered across the landscape of my past. As I stepped into the unknown, the echoes of my journey whispered promises of hope and renewal, guiding me toward a future where the shadows of my past would no longer hold sway over my destiny. The journey ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges and revelations yet to be uncovered, but I faced it with a newfound strength and resilience, determined to forge a path through the darkness and reclaim the fragments of my identity scattered across the landscape of my past. As I stepped into the unknown, the echoes of my journey whispered promises of hope and renewal, guiding me toward a future where the shadows of my past would no longer hold sway over my destiny. The journey ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges and revelations yet to be uncovered, but I faced it with a newfound strength and resilience, determined to forge a path through the darkness and reclaim the fragments of my identity scattered across the landscape of my past. As I stepped into the unknown, the echoes of my journey whispered promises of hope and renewal, guiding me toward a future where the shadows of my past would no longer hold sway over my destiny. Hope you enjoyed that spine-chilling experience. Now, let's move on to the next creepy tale. Ready to face more thrilling moments together? Let's dive into the next story right away. The night, with its profound silence and all-encompassing darkness, had long been my indomitable sanctuary, a comforting cloak that enveloped me in its quiet embrace, shielding me from the clamorous world that lay beyond. Within those hushed hours, the cacophony of daylight's chaos faded into the background, granting me the tranquility I so desperately craved to explore the intricate labyrinth of my own thoughts. So, when serendipity led me to a job opening as a nocturnal cleaner for a company enshrouded in obscurity, it felt like destiny had finally marked my path. The position offered not only reasonable pay, but also night shifts that perfectly aligned with my innate disposition for the nocturnal. Yet, little did I suspect that this seemingly innocent job would transport me into a mysterious realm teeming with shadows and cryptic whispers, where the already delicate veil that separates reality from nightmares would stretch to its utmost limits. On my inaugural night, I stood transfixed before an imposing edifice that clawed at the night sky with a foreboding majesty, its silhouette a looming giant amidst the sea of darkness. The building, shrouded in layers of secrecy, bore neither name nor symbol to define it, a stark monument of anonymity. When I crossed its threshold, a chill crept along my spine, a subtle and silent warning that I foolishly chose to brush aside with indifference. The lobby, vast and eerily vacant, engulfed me in an oppressive silence, a void punctuated only by the mechanical hum of an air conditioning system that seemed almost too loud in the stillness. It was there that I met Mr. Graves, the austere man who would be my guide into this uncharted world. His gaze was penetrating, akin to staring into a deep abyss of untapped secrets, and his voice carried the same icy remoteness as the marble floor beneath my feet. Mr. Graves presented me with a thick, time-worn manual, its pages filled with a complex weave of rules and convoluted guidelines, seemingly excessive for what amounted to mere cleaning duties. Adhere to these meticulously, he instructed in a tone leaving no room for negotiation, his eyes remaining fixed upon mine, unwavering and unyielding. And be sure to heed every warning that you encounter. As I embarked upon my cleaning duties, an unsettling sensation of being watched clung to me, a shadow I could not shake. The corridors stretched endlessly, dimly lit with fluorescent bulbs that flickered now and then, casting menacing shadows that seemed to waver and distort upon the cold, unyielding walls. Concentration proved elusive as I moved through my tasks, scrubbing surfaces and dusting forgotten corners, while a suffocating silence bore down upon me, broken only intermittently by the building's groan as it settled into its own structure. Initially, the nights unfurled without much outward disruption, yet the oppressive atmosphere lingered heavily, draping itself around me like a tangible shroud. It was on the fourth night of my duties that I encountered something truly unsettling, a message etched deep into the grimy wall near the elevator. "Beware the shadow stealers," it warned, the words clawing at my nerve endings with an icy dread. Regardless, I chose to cast it aside, dismissing it as a dark jest left behind by some previous employee with a twisted sense of humor. However, as the darkness continued to envelop me each night, disregarding the strange occurrences became an impossibility. Shadows, once simple absences of light, gradually took on a life of their own, moving, bending, almost dancing to some unheard melody that taunted my sanity. Whispers seemed to fill the air, barely distinguishable yet persistently present, as though the very walls harbored secrets they yearned to reveal. An unnatural cold seeped deeper into the environment, my breath manifesting in visible puffs despite the building's climate control system being comfortably set. On one fateful night, as I performed my routine cleaning duties within the executive offices, my own reflection in the expansive window caught my attention. My shadow, typically constant and unwavering, appeared to pulse, distorting in a way that felt inexplicably wrong. A surge of panic overwhelmed me, a chilling reminder of the warnings about the shadow stealers. Despite this, I forced myself into denial, dismissing the experience as the machinations of an overactive imagination, a solitary spirit conjuring tricks within my beleaguered solitude. Yet, the unnerving events, each more chilling than the last, accelerated in frequency and intensity. Phantom figures teased the corners of my vision, lingering only to vanish when I turned to face them directly. The once whispered voices crescendoed into a full chorus of dread, insinuating their way into my subconscious with relentless persistence. A dense, oppressive unease nestled in my chest, as though a creeping darkness encircled the very core of my being. One particularly ominous night, an unavoidable duty drew me to the basement, a forbidding place I had been repeatedly cautioned to avoid. As I descended the treacherous stairway, the air thickened ominously, charged with an unholy malevolence as shadows seemed to throb and breathe with life. It was amidst this living darkness that I encountered a voice, a haunting timbre imbued with malice, echoing from the abyss's depths. "Why do you linger here, mortal?" it demanded, each syllable dripping with venom, emanating from all directions yet remaining featureless and invisible. My heart pounded wildly in my chest, its rhythm chaotic and untamed. Immobilized, I found myself trapped in an unseen specter's grip. I'm just doing my job," I stammered weakly, my voice barely penetrating the stifling, oppressive air. "You tread on sanctified ground," the voice continued, its tone a chilling blend of cruelty and detachment, "where shadows feast upon the souls of the unwary and naive." Fear surged forward, overpowering me, but it was curiosity's sharp edge that compelled me to ask the forbidden question, "What are you?" "I am the guardian of shadows, the consumer of light," it proclaimed, a layer of dark amusement lacing its words. "And you, unthinking fool, are forfeiting all that which you cherish." With those chilling words, the oppressive presence faded away, leaving me stranded in a suffocating void of darkness. My mind raced, an uncontrollable torrent of chaotic thoughts. The truth was now undeniable. The warnings were genuine, far from mere fabrications, and a malevolent presence thrived within these hallways, slowly siphoning away my shadow, my essence, my very soul. As days bled into weeks, I felt myself unraveling into a mere echo of who I once was. My reflection became increasingly pallid, the shadows haunting my eyes deepening into dark chasms. Rest transformed into a distant memory, swept away by the unending nightmares filled with shadowy entities grasping for me, reaching out to claim what remained of my soul. Piece by piece, fragments of myself slipped away, devoured by the ever-looming darkness. Driven by a relentless thirst for comprehension, I delved into the company records, desperately seeking answers to my haunting experiences. It was there I uncovered an unsettling truth. This building was constructed upon land steeped in ancient curses, a site formerly utilized for enigmatic rituals and sinister sacrifices. The company, existing purely as a facade, covertly engaged in malevolent activities of unfathomable depth. Armed with this newfound and profoundly disturbing knowledge, I confronted Mr. Graves, demanding clarity and truth. His eyes bore into mine, a mingling of pity and cold indifference. "You were cautioned," he reiterated flatly. "Shadows are not to be meddled with." In that moment, a profound sense of hopelessness washed over me, understanding dawning as I realized I was ensnared, trapped within a tapestry woven of shadows and darkness, from which there appeared no escape. The shadow stealers had marked me, and piece by piece, I unraveled, my soul gradually slipping into the void's quiet embrace. Now, as I pen these final words, I sense the last tendrils of my humanity unspooling, evaporating into the silent abyss. Shadows murmur incessantly, promising liberation from my torment. In this fleeting moment, a stark epiphany settles in. I am irreversibly doomed, ensnared by the darkness I once found solace in, which now consumes me utterly. In the end, I am reduced to no more than a whisper amidst the shadows, an eternal, cautionary echo for those bold enough to venture beyond where light dares not reach. Hope you enjoyed that spine-chilling experience. Now, let's move on to the next creepy tale. Ready to face more thrilling moments together? Let's dive into the next story right away. The memory of the day it all began is etched in my mind as clearly as if it happened just moments ago. The sun was shining brightly, casting a warm, golden glow over everything in sight. The air was alive with the invigorating scent of freshly cut grass, a smell that always brought a sense of peace and contentment to my heart. My dog, Max, was in his element, bounding across the yard with his favorite ball clutched in his mouth, his tail wagging furiously with joy. It was one of those rare, perfect days when everything seemed to fall into place, when the world felt harmonious and right. Yet, this serene moment was shattered when I happened to glance over the fence and saw Douglas, my neighbor, engrossed in his usual ritual of tending to his lawn with an intensity that bordered on obsession. Douglas had always been an enigmatic presence in our neighborhood. His devotion to his lawn was unparalleled, consuming countless hours of his day to ensure that every blade of grass was perfectly trimmed, each one standing in precise alignment. Our interactions were infrequent, usually limited to polite exchanges about the weather or the latest happenings in the neighborhood. Yet, no matter where our conversations began, they invariably circled back to his beloved grass. He spoke of it with a fervor that was both fascinating and, at times, unsettling, as if the lawn held secrets only he could decipher, secrets that were beyond the understanding of ordinary people. That night, as if to counterbalance the day's perfection, a violent storm descended upon our town with a vengeance. The wind howled like a tormented spirit, rattling the windows and shaking the very foundations of our homes. The rain lashed against the glass with relentless fury, creating a cacophony of sound that was both thrilling and terrifying. I was on the verge of drifting into a restless sleep when Max began to growl, a low, menacing sound that sent an involuntary shiver down my spine. Curiosity and fear propelled me to the window, and what I saw nearly stopped my heart. There, standing in the middle of my yard, was Douglas. He was drenched from head to toe, his clothes clinging to his body like a second skin. But what truly terrified me was the black substance that coated him, glistening ominously in the dim light. His fingers were mangled, almost entirely gone, and he seemed to be in a trance, swaying back and forth as if entranced by some unheard melody, a melody that only he could hear. A surge of panic coursed through me. With trembling hands, I grabbed my phone and dialed the police, my voice barely steady enough to convey the urgency of the situation. But before I could utter a word, Douglas let out an inhuman scream and lunged at me, his eyes wild with a madness that defied comprehension. I stumbled backward, dropping the phone, and for a fleeting moment, I was paralyzed by sheer terror, unable to move or think, caught in the grip of a nightmare from which there seemed to be no escape. The distant wail of sirens was a lifeline, pulling me back from the brink of despair. The police arrived just in time, their presence a beacon of hope amid the chaos. It took several officers to restrain Douglas, who fought with a ferocity that seemed beyond human. As they led him away, I caught a glimpse of his face, twisted with rage and something else, something I couldn't quite grasp, a haunting enigma that lingered in my thoughts, refusing to be dismissed or forgotten. In the weeks that followed, I struggled to put the incident behind me, but the nightmares persisted, haunting my every waking moment. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong, that Douglas's descent into madness was merely the beginning of a deeper, more sinister mystery that lay hidden beneath the surface of our seemingly peaceful neighborhood. Then, one morning, as I was tending to my own yard, I stumbled upon a chilling discovery. Douglas's fingers, buried beneath the soil, had begun to sprout. Tiny green shoots emerged from the decaying flesh, reaching for the sky with an eerie determination. It was as if the earth itself was trying to reclaim him, to absorb his madness and make it its own, a grotesque cycle of life and death intertwined in a way that defied logic and reason. I couldn't comprehend what I was witnessing, and the horror of it all threatened to overwhelm me. In a desperate attempt to forget, I buried the fingers deeper, hoping to erase the memory, but the image was indelibly etched into my mind. The knowledge that something so unnatural could exist in my own backyard was a burden I couldn't escape, a constant reminder of the inexplicable events that had unfolded, events that seemed to defy the very laws of nature. Max and I continued to live in the shadow of that night, the weight of it pressing down on us like a suffocating fog. I avoided the yard as much as possible, and when I did venture outside, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that Douglas's spirit lingered, waiting for the right moment to strike. The once vibrant community I had loved now felt like a prison, its walls closing in around me, suffocating in their familiarity. A place that had once been a sanctuary now transformed into a source of dread and fear. The months passed slowly, each day a struggle to maintain some semblance of normalcy. I became reclusive, avoiding neighbors and friends, consumed by the fear that what had happened to Douglas could happen to me. The vibrant life I once cherished seemed to fade, replaced by a pervasive sense of dread and isolation, a feeling that the shadows were closing in, that the darkness was an ever-present threat waiting to consume me. Yet, despite the terror and the uncertainty, there was a strange comfort in knowing that I wasn't alone. Max was always by my side, a loyal companion in the darkest of times. His presence was a reminder that life, no matter how twisted, still held moments of joy and connection, a beacon of hope in an otherwise bleak existence. Together, we navigated the shadows, finding solace in each other's presence and the unbreakable bond we shared. As I sit here, writing this story, I realize that the events of that night have changed me in ways I never could have imagined. I've come to accept that some mysteries are beyond human understanding, that the world is filled with shadows we may never fully comprehend. The experience has taught me to embrace the unknown, to find strength in vulnerability, and to confront my fears with resilience and courage, to face the darkness with a newfound determination and resolve. But I've also learned that even in the face of unimaginable horror, we can find the strength to endure, to confront our fears and emerge stronger on the other side. And as long as I have Max by my side, I know that I can face whatever darkness lies ahead. Together, we navigate the shadows, finding solace in each other's presence and the unbreakable bond we share, a bond that gives me the courage to face the unknown and the hope to believe in a brighter future. Alright, that's the end of today's story. Thank you for joining me on this thrilling journey through the shadows of life and death. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the little bell to get more spine-chilling tales from Whisper of Horror. Remember, every soul has a story, and here, we give them a voice. See you next time. Stay curious, stay cautious, and keep whispering horror. When my friends and I first began planning this paranormal investigation, our minds were buzzing with curiosity and a thrill of excitement. We had heard whispers about an abandoned school located in Tennessee, Hollow Creek School, where a tragic event had unfolded long ago, leaving a chilling legacy that continues to send shivers down people's spines even today. The school has been closed for many years, but its dark shadow still looms over the town, becoming a haunting topic of conversation among the locals. There are rumors that a boy tragically lost his life there after enduring relentless bullying from his classmates, and that his body was hidden beneath the cold, unforgiving floorboards. Ever since that fateful day, the school has been said to be haunted, with many individuals claiming to have experienced strange and supernatural occurrences within its decaying walls. On a particularly gloomy autumn night, filled with both trepidation and determination, we finally found the courage to drive to that eerie place. As we cruised along the winding roads, the trees outside the car window cast strange, elongated shadows in the dim light of the moon, as if they were warning us to stay far away from what lay ahead. When we finally arrived at the school, the heavy silence of the night enveloped us, almost suffocating in its intensity, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves that seemed to whisper secrets to the wind, urging us to turn back. The school itself appeared dilapidated and forlorn, with its open windows resembling a monster's gaping mouth, waiting hungrily for its next prey. A surge of anxiety washed over me, but more than that, I felt an irresistible pull toward the unknown, a deep-seated desire to explore the mysteries that lay within. Our team was made up of 5 brave souls: me, Anna, Mike, Lena, and Harry. Armed with flashlights, recording equipment, and some basic investigative tools, we were ready to embark on our adventure, even though an unsettling sense of unease lingered in the back of our minds. As soon as we stepped through the threshold of the school, the air hit us like a wall, thick with the musty smell of mildew. The walls were covered in peeling paint and signs of age, as if they were trying to tell the haunting story of the school's past. We decided to begin our exploration on the second floor, determined to find any evidence that could prove the place was indeed haunted. As we ventured deeper into the building, we began to hear the sound of children laughing, clear, bright, and chilling. At first, we dismissed it as the wind or our overactive imaginations, but the laughter grew louder and clearer, almost beckoning us with an irresistible allure that was hard to resist. "Did you guys hear that?" I whispered, my voice barely escaping my throat, filled with apprehension. "I heard it, but it's probably just in our heads," Anna replied, her voice trembling, clearly shaken by the eerie atmosphere surrounding us. Her eyes flickered with unease, as if she were trying to convince herself that it was merely a figment of our imagination playing tricks on us. As we continued our exploration, a blurry figure suddenly appeared in the hallway, and my heart raced as if something unseen was watching our every move. At that moment, Harry looked up and turned pale, his face filled with terror and disbelief. I wanted to ask him what he had seen, but all I could do was watch in horror as he stumbled away in fear. We instinctively followed him, driven by an invisible force that compelled us forward, our hearts pounding with anxiety and dread as we navigated the darkened halls. We entered a classroom, and the quiet atmosphere was abruptly shattered by a loud crash that echoed through the empty space. It sounded like something heavy had fallen to the floor, and we looked around in panic, filled with confusion and unease. "What was that?" Mike shouted, his voice reverberating in the stillness of the classroom, amplifying our sense of dread. I scanned the room, a sense of foreboding creeping over me like a cold shroud. The classroom was empty, devoid of life, but the shadows in the corners seemed particularly deep and foreboding, as if something sinister was lurking there, waiting for the right moment to strike. Our collective fear began to spread like wildfire, stirring every nerve in our bodies, making the air feel thick and heavy in that silent space. "We should get out of here," Lena suggested, her voice trembling slightly, her words striking a chord of fear deep within us. Just then, we heard a noise coming from the gymnasium, a sound like something heavy hitting the ground, followed by a soft whisper that echoed through the halls, almost like children playing, innocent yet undeniably eerie. In a state of heightened anxiety, we made our way toward the gym, the dark hallways feeling even more ominous as we shone our flashlights back and forth, quickening our pace, filled with a mix of fear and anticipation. When we finally reached the gym, the vastness of the space left us momentarily speechless. The surrounding darkness seemed to engulf us, swallowing our courage whole. Under the dim lights, the air was thick with a suffocating pressure, as if an unseen force was closing in on us, ready to pounce. I could feel Harry's tension rising. His lips were trembling, and his voice was low and urgent. "We really should go back. It's getting late," he said, his words dripping with foreboding, as if he sensed something was terribly wrong about this place. Suddenly, beside the gym wall, a towering figure appeared, at least 7 feet tall, its dark outline menacing and otherworldly. I could hardly believe my eyes as Harry shouted, "Look, it's right there." His voice echoed in the emptiness, filled with despair and terror that sent chills racing down my spine. I was overwhelmed by an indescribable fear. My feet felt glued to the floor, unable to move as panic surged through me. The creature, with its pale skin and hollow eye sockets, was too horrifying to look at directly. It slowly approached us, and through its vacant gaze, I felt as if I could see countless lonely, suffering souls trapped within, as if they were sharing their tragic stories with us, begging for release. "Run!" I heard myself scream, but my body wouldn't respond. It felt as if time had frozen. In that instant, we all bolted in different directions, desperately trying to escape the nightmare that had engulfed the school, our hearts racing with fear and sheer desperation. I frantically searched for an exit, the sounds around me echoing like countless children crying out in anguish, mourning for our souls. Finally, I burst through an open door and fled into the night, driving away from the strange and terrifying place. The wheels kicked up dust as we sped off, leaving our terror behind, but that fear was deeply rooted in my heart, an indelible mark etched into my memory. Even so, the shadow of Hollow Creek School remained firmly etched in my mind, a haunting reminder of that night. The experience invaded my dreams, the sounds and images wrapping around me like ghosts, making it impossible to forget what had transpired. After this harrowing investigation, my friends and I vowed never to return to that school, knowing that some places are best left undisturbed. Time passed, and the nightmares gradually faded, but I knew that beneath those crumbling ruins, the soul of that forgotten boy was still waiting to be remembered, waiting for a moment of vengeance that might never come. Hope you enjoyed that spine-chilling experience. Now, let's move on to the next creepy tale. Ready to face more thrilling moments together? Let's dive into the next story right away. I never imagined I would find myself staring into the abyss, yet here I am, precariously perched on the edge of a digital precipice, my eyes glued to the flickering screens that surround me in this dimly lit room. My name is Bill, and I am one of the Last Watchers, a title that carries with it a heavy burden. My job is to monitor potential apocalyptic scenarios that could unravel the very fabric of our society, a responsibility that weighs heavily on my shoulders. I have always believed that knowledge is power and that my duty is to prevent chaos from taking root in our world before it can blossom into something far more sinister. For years, I have sifted through vast streams of data, meticulously analyzing patterns and filtering through the noise of everyday life to pinpoint genuine threats. The world is an incredibly fragile place, and it is my job to ensure that the delicate balance we all rely on does not tip over the edge into chaos and destruction. But lately, something has shifted, an unsettling change in the atmosphere that I can't quite place. The air feels charged with attention, a sense of impending doom, and the data I am receiving is more alarming than ever before. It all began with a series of strange and disconcerting reports coming from the Midwest. At first, they seemed like isolated incidents, unusual animal behaviors, inexplicable illnesses, and whispers of a contagion spreading through rural communities like wildfire. Initially, I brushed it off as just another scare, the kind of sensationalism that the media loves to latch onto for ratings. However, as the days turned into weeks, the reports grew more frequent and increasingly dire. I could no longer ignore the signs. Something was profoundly wrong. Using drones equipped with advanced sensors, I began monitoring the affected areas, desperate to uncover the truth behind these unsettling reports. The images that streamed back to me were haunting and disturbing. Fields that were once vibrant with life lay barren and desolate, the crops withered and blackened as if scorched by an unseen flame. The towns that had once bustled with activity were now ghostly echoes of their former selves, their streets eerily silent. I could see the remnants of lives interrupted, homes shuttered and abandoned, and it felt as though I was witnessing a slow-motion apocalypse unfold before my very eyes. But it wasn't just the landscape that alarmed me, it was the people, those who remained. They were changed, their very essence altered by the pervasive fear that hung in the air like a thick fog. Their eyes carried a glaze of terror, a primal instinct to survive that had replaced any semblance of normalcy. I watched helplessly as they barricaded themselves in their homes, their lives reduced to whispers and shadows. It was as if a malevolent force had descended upon them, and I was powerless to intervene in their suffering. As I delved deeper into the data, I stumbled upon something that sent a chill down my spine. Genetic sequences, unlike anything I had ever encountered before, began to emerge from the chaos. They were remnants of a biological entity that seemed to feed on fear and despair, a parasitic organism that thrived in the darkness of the human psyche. It was a predator, and humanity was its prey, ensnared in a web of its own making. The more I uncovered, the more I realized that this was not a natural occurrence. The patterns in the data pointed to something deliberate, an orchestrated event designed to unleash this horror upon the world. A knot tightened in my stomach as I traced the origins of this contagion back to a research facility that had been conducting experiments on human behavior. The name of the facility rang a bell in my mind, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I had seen it before, perhaps in a report or a discussion long forgotten. Late one night, driven by a mix of curiosity and dread, I made the decision to dig deeper into the facility's records. I hacked into their archives, my heart racing as I navigated through layers of security protocols. What I found was beyond comprehension. They had been experimenting with a form of mind control, utilizing a biological agent to manipulate emotions and behaviors in ways that defied ethical boundaries. But something had gone horribly wrong, and the agent had escaped, spreading its tendrils of influence across the nation like a dark plague. I felt a growing sense of urgency wash over me. I had to find the source of this nightmare and put an end to it before it consumed us all. But as I pieced together the fragments of information, I stumbled upon a name that made my blood run cold, my own. It was a project that had been abandoned years ago, one that I had been unwittingly involved in during my early career. The implications were staggering, and I was left grappling with the horrifying possibility that I had played a role in unleashing this horror upon the world. With each passing day, the situation grew more dire. Reports of violence and madness surged as the infected became increasingly aggressive, their minds twisted by the very organism that had taken root within them. I watched in horror as entire communities descended into chaos, the fabric of society unraveling before my eyes. The drones captured footage of people attacking one another, driven by an insatiable hunger for destruction and chaos. It was a nightmare made flesh, and I was powerless to stop it from spiraling further into darkness. But I couldn't give up. I had to find a way to reverse the damage, to reclaim what had been lost before it was too late. I began reaching out to contacts within the scientific community, desperate for answers and solutions. Time was running out, and I could feel the weight of the world pressing down on me like a heavy shroud. Then, one evening, I received a message that changed everything. A whistleblower from the facility had come forward, claiming to have developed a potential antidote. But there was a catch. It required a direct confrontation with the source of the contagion, a risky endeavor that could cost me my life. I hesitated, the fear of the unknown clawing at my resolve, but deep down, I knew I had no choice. I was the only one who could do this, the only one who had the knowledge and the means to confront this darkness.
Armed with the knowledge I had gathered, I set out on a perilous journey into the heart of darkness. The facility loomed before me, a monolithic structure that seemed to pulse with malevolence, a monument to human hubris and folly. I could feel the air thickening around me, charged with the remnants of the horrors that had transpired within its walls. As I stepped inside, the fluorescent lights flickered ominously, casting long shadows that danced around me, as if the very walls were alive with the memories of despair. The corridors were eerily silent, the remnants of past experiments littering the ground like forgotten memories. I pressed on, guided by the faint whispers of the whistleblower's instructions echoing in my mind. The deeper I went, the more I could feel the presence of the organism, a palpable energy that seemed to seep from the very walls, wrapping around me like a shroud. It was as if it were aware of my intrusion, watching, waiting for the moment to strike. Finally, I reached the heart of the facility, a sterile laboratory filled with equipment that hummed with a life of its own. In the center of the room stood a glass chamber, pulsating with a sickly glow that seemed to draw me in. Inside, I could see the organism, a writhing mass of tendrils and dark energy that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. It was both beautiful and terrifying, a testament to the power of creation and destruction intertwined in a grotesque dance. Taking a deep breath, I approached the chamber, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. I had to confront this entity, to face the darkness that had been unleashed upon the world. With trembling hands, I activated the antidote, watching as it filled the chamber with a brilliant light that illuminated the room. The organism recoiled, its tendrils thrashing in protest, but I stood firm, determined to see this through to the bitter end. In that moment, I felt a connection, a fleeting glimpse into the consciousness of the organism. It was a reflection of humanity's darkest fears, a manifestation of our collective despair. I understood then that it wasn't just a monster, it was a mirror, showing us the depths of our own souls, our weaknesses laid bare. The light of the antidote began to envelop it, and I could feel the struggle intensifying, a battle of wills between light and darkness. As the chamber pulsed with energy, I realized that I had to make a choice. I could destroy the organism entirely, but in doing so, I risked losing a part of myself in the process. Or I could try to integrate the antidote, to find a way to coexist with this darkness, to harness its power for good rather than destruction. It was a gamble, but I had come too far to turn back now, too invested in this fight to let fear dictate my actions. With a surge of determination, I reached out, channeling the antidote's energy into the chamber with all my might. The light exploded, engulfing the room in a blinding brilliance that threatened to overwhelm my senses. I felt the tendrils wrap around me, pulling me into the abyss, and for a moment, I was lost in a sea of darkness. But then, I found my footing, my willpower shining through the oppressive gloom, refusing to be extinguished. When the light finally faded, I found myself standing in the lab, the chamber now silent and still. The organism was gone, but I could still feel its presence lingering in the air, a ghostly reminder of the battle I had just fought. I had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, but I knew the battle was far from over. The world outside was still in turmoil, and I had to return to help heal the wounds that had been inflicted upon humanity. As I made my way back through the facility, I felt a sense of purpose ignite within me, a fire that had been rekindled by my confrontation with the darkness. I was no longer just a watcher, I was a guardian, ready to confront the shadows that threatened to consume us all. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges and obstacles, but I was determined to reclaim the light and guide humanity back from the brink of despair, to restore hope where there had been none. When I stepped outside, the sun was setting on the horizon, casting a warm, golden glow over the desolate landscape that lay before me. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders, but also the glimmer of hope for a new beginning. The darkness may have been strong, but I was stronger, fortified by my experiences and the knowledge I had gained. And as long as I stood vigilant, there was still a chance for redemption, a flicker of light in the encroaching shadows. Hope you enjoyed that spine-chilling experience. Now, let's move on to the next creepy tale. Ready to face more thrilling moments together? Let's dive into the next story right away.